standard form on letter B? What is standard form?
You have to subtract the thing.
Very good. Standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. So I need to get my x term over with all my other terms. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Can that 4x combine with anything?
No.
No. So it just becomes negative 2x squared minus 4x minus 2 equals 0. Everyone good with that?
Yep.
Now let's just do like we did yesterday. Identify my A, B, and C values. So please raise your hand. Don't just shout it out if you can give me my A value. Negative 2. Raise your hand if you can give me my B value. Negative 4. And raise your hand if you can give me my C value. Negative 2. Any questions where I'm getting A, B, and C? Everyone good with that? Identifying that. Can anyone raise your hand and tell me the formula for my axis of symmetry from yesterday?
B, negative B over 2. Wait, hold on. Yeah, 2A.
Opposite of B over 2A. What's the opposite of my B in this case? Positive 4. Opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. And then what's my A value? Negative 2. What's 2 times negative 2? Negative 4. 4 divided by negative 4? Negative 1. So x equals negative 1 is my axis of symmetry. Any questions how I got my axis of symmetry? What else did I just find?
The parentheses of one of the vertexes.
Which part of my vertex?
The first part. And the second part.
The x value of my vertex, correct? So I found the x value of my vertex. How do I find the y value? I got to do f of opposite of b over 2a. So I'm just plugging my x value into my function. Say what? Oh, sorry. That's negative 1. Thank you. So I'm just plugging my x value, negative 1, into my original function. Negative 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2. What's negative 1 squared? 1. And then what's negative 2 times 1? Negative 2. What's negative 4 times negative 1? Positive 4. And then I still have my minus 2. Everyone with me? And then what's negative 2 plus 4? 2. And then what's 2 minus 2? 0. My y value for my vertex is 0. Questions how I got my vertex? Someone raise your hand and tell me how I find my y-intercept.
0, C.
It is 0, comma c. It's my c value. What's my c value here? Negative 2. So the y-intercept is 0, negative 2. We already identified c, so I already knew my y-intercept. Questions how I got my 3 things that I'm going to graph. We're good so far. Now let's go graph. I'm going to graph my axis of symmetry first. It's just a vertical line through x equals negative 1. crossing my x-axis at -1. There's my axis of symmetry. Then I'm going to graph my vertex, -1, 0. Can everyone see that point good enough? And then I'm going to graph my y-intercept, 0, -2. How do I get more points on the other side of the axis of symmetry? Reflect them. Reflect the points over that axis of symmetry. So my y-intercept is 1 unit away from the axis of symmetry. So I need a point 1 unit in the opposite direction. Just like that. Any questions there? How could I get more points if I wanted to? No, it's not a straight line, so it's not going to have technically a slope that's rise over run. Let's say I wanted to find the point where the x value is 1. What would I do? Say it again. Not necessarily. If I want to find the point where x is 1, I'm just plugging 1 in for x to my function, correct?
Yeah.
So my function is -2x squared minus 4x minus 2 equals y. So if I wanted to find the point where the x value is 1, I just plug 1 in for x. Right? Does everyone see that? When I work it down, that's going to give me my y value. So 1 squared is 1. -4 times 1 is -4. What's -2 minus 4? -6. And -6 minus 2? -8. So my y value would be -8. So I could graph 1, -8. What point does that also give me? I could reflect it, right? So that gives me 2 points actually when I do that. Does everyone see that? So that just helps me extend my parabola a little longer, and it gives me a more accurate parabola.
So when you reflect over the axis of symmetry?
Yep.
Not like
The y-axis.
y-axis. That's
Yep.
what I was thinking.
Nope, that's why we have the axis of symmetry, because it's symmetric over that line.
Okay.
So if I folded that parabola, those points would line up. So, like I said, I just erased my points. Good job. So I just connect my points with my parabola. And like I said, just having more points gives me a more accurate parabola. Does everyone see how I found those extra points? Just plugged in those values, one outside of my previous values. We good with that? So, I've got to answer the overlying question that was asked earlier. It wanted me to solve my equation. When I graph, what is my solution? Let's go back to this. If I'm solving by graphing, what are my solutions? The x-intercepts. So wherever my graph crosses the x-axis, that is my solution or solutions. So how many solutions do I have in this case? 1. What is it? -1. It only crosses my x-axis at -1, correct? So my solution is x equals -1. I know that's our axis of symmetry, but that's not always going to be the case, where we get the same answer as the axis of symmetry. So you graph your quadratic equation. Wherever it crosses the x-axis, that is my solution. So you could have 1, you could have 2. Let's say I had a parabola right here like that. Is that ever going to touch my x-axis? No. So what would I put there? Not undefined. No solution. Because the solution is where it crosses the x-axis. If it doesn't cross the x-axis, I don't have a solution. Does that make sense? Any questions there? Any questions about any of our notes we took yesterday or today? All right. There's our homework. Page 121, numbers 3 through 12 all. It's 10 problems. I'm going to give you some graph paper so you can graph these, because it's all about graphing today. Everyone got it? So get the assignment written down. That way I can project the book page up onto the board, and that way you can get started. I'll play some Christmas music for us while we're working. I'll get some for y'all here in a second. But any questions before we get started?